Ian has moved further offshore, which means the rainfall we anticipated will be much, much less here in Duval County. However, I want to make this clear. We're not out of the woods, and you should not let your guard down. Ian is still churning 80 miles southeast of Jacksonville, and the entire county remains under a tropical storm warning, while the coast of Duval County is still under hurricane watch. There are a lot of trees down throughout the county. Some have lost power. Unless you have to be on the roads, I would encourage you to stay home and stay safe until the storm passes. Tidal and coastal flooding are still a major concern as we hit high tides at the beaches right now, at noon, and again at midnight tonight. For the river, high tide is 30 minutes from now, 12:30, and then 1 a.m. on Friday, tomorrow morning. The threat for flooding does not end tonight. For those in flood zones and low-lying areas near the St. Johns River, the chance of flooding extends through Sunday. Alex with the National Weather Service is here and can talk more about those risks when we take questions. I've been coordinating with our beaches mayors leading up to this storm and throughout. Last night, we made a decision to close the beaches to the public. They'll stay closed until we determine it's safe for people to be near the water. Early this morning, the state of Florida requested help from our Urban Search and Rescue Task Force. They deployed at 8 a.m. to the Tampa area. This team of 50 men and women from Jacksonville Fire and Rescue will be going door to door checking for lost, missing, or trapped individuals. I'd like to personally thank these brave heroes. While Ian will have less of an impact on Jacksonville, it's crucial that we take our resources and help our neighbors in the hardest hit areas. We have 4 shelters open throughout the city. Landmark Middle School and the Legends Center are now open to the general public. Landmark is also a pet-friendly shelter, while the Legends Center is available for those with special needs. Atlantic Coast High School is also open, but strictly for those with special needs and their pets. And LaVilla School of the Arts is available to serve our homeless population. If you go to a shelter, please bring your emergency kit, identification, important documents, and prescriptions. There's a complete list of things you should bring at jacksready.com. For those of you living near Ken Knight Drive, one of the areas we know is prone to flooding, Jacksonville Transportation Authority, Councilwoman Brenda Priestley Jackson, and my administration all work together to provide express transportation to and from the Legends Center shelter. The stop is located at 3991 Moncrief in Ken Knight and will run until 2 p.m. today. 630 City, our information line for the public, continues to be open 24 hours a day. Please call this number for information regarding city services, weather information, shelter updates, and evacuation zones. For life-threatening issues or public safety, please call 911. Before we open it up for questions, I want to continue to share my thoughts and prayers for those in Southwest Florida. I mean, it's hard to watch, and loss of life, lives destroyed. And as we get through this, we've already deployed some people. We stand ready to help our neighbors down there. With that, we'll open it up to questions.
Just a quick question. You had mentioned with high tide coming up along the St. Johns River in about a half hour, what problems, if any, have already occurred? What have your folks seen? And, do you still think we're going to have that type of flooding that we saw with Irma?
I mean, most of what we've seen so far, the issues that I'm aware of, are down trees. There's been some outages, which we can talk about here. Everybody's working hard on clearing the roads, and GAA has been restoring people's power pretty rapidly from the data I've seen. Do we expect an Irma or a Matthew event, or both? Less likely than it was yesterday and last night, but still possible. As I said in my remarks, if you're in those areas, be aware that the risk still exists. Alex, if you want to.
Yeah, so the one of the big factors with Irma was when we had 10 to 20 inches of rain on top of the tidal flooding, and we were anticipating something of that magnitude with Ian. With the storm shifting offshore, the heaviest rains are going to go with it and stay south. So that factor being taken out, the risk for Irma type flooding in the St. Johns is much lower than it was yesterday.
You said we're going to expect problems though up until Sunday?
Yeah, so in the river, not at the coast should be going below any flood stages for coastal flooding by Saturday. But in the river, because a lot of the headwaters come from Central Florida where a lot more rain fell, a lot of that water is going to channel down and up through downtown. So between that and then the trap tides that are happening down near Putnam County, that's all going to work its way back to the north. So that's why we're going to have extended periods of coastal flooding through the weekend and potentially even beyond.
When it comes to some of the damage that you have already seen or the issues you've already seen around the city, what are some of the hot spots that have seen some major damage?
I mean, I don't have specific geographic locations available to me right now. I just know that our teams were deployed last night, Jacksonville Fire and Rescue, JEA, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and the information I've been getting back is I've actually seen pictures and video of them out clearing roads throughout different parts of the city.
From a JEA perspective with power, how is it going getting the folks who have lost it restored?
Yeah, so far we've been able to respond really well. The outages started occurring early afternoon yesterday. We've gone almost 24 hours safely restoring power. The peak this morning was about 22,000 people that were without power. It is now down to about just over 6,500 people, so we're making a lot of progress, and that's good for the majority of the people in the area, and we are trying to get to those that are impacted as quickly as we can.
Depending on what weather does, how do you make the call on whether or not to take your crews off the streets?
Yeah, so the wind has been higher at the beaches, and when the bucket truck, if it's over 30 mile per hour wind, then we pull that off the street. Right now, the rest of the area we're able to get to, and we're being able to respond quickly. So we look at it moment by moment to be sure that our crews are safe.
So just to be clear, the beaches right now are places you don't have crews on?
For the moment. As soon as the wind drops back down, we will get back out and start doing that. But the outages right now are still widespread, and there's less than right at 6,500.
Question on the shelters. I know they're open, 4 shelters. How long are they going to be open, and is anybody taking advantage of it? I know the Salzbacher Center evacuated their folks, but as for the other shelters?
I don't know how long they'll be open. I mean, we'll make that assessment based on the need. You know, if we have some sort of a post-storm event where people can't get to their homes or they don't have shelter, we'll obviously do what we have to make sure that they have access to shelter. Historically, I don't have the shelter numbers right now, but I can tell you, Jim, historically, the shelters are often underutilized.
Yep.
Please share the data.
Yes, sir. So Atlantic Coast, and this is about 5% of our shelter population is being utilized at this point. So the occupancy at Atlantic Coast is 13, at Landmark is 24, at LaVilla is 115, at Legends is 81. The special medical needs clients there, Atlantic Coast is 9, at Legends is 10, for a total of 252 out of 4,709 capacity. So we've not reached anywhere near our capacity, so we still have that. Thank you.
Can you talk about JTA and buses when service will return?
Matt Ford with the JTA. We are anticipating resuming regular service on Friday for our fixed route bus service. As it relates to the St. Johns River Ferry, that's going to take a longer time frame because we need to get approval from the Coast Guard, and we expect to have that up and running by Saturday afternoon. Our connection service, which is our paratransit service, will also resume in the midday time frame on Friday, but we're going to start out first with focusing on life-sustaining trips first, and then we'll get our regular service up and running later in the afternoon.
So regular service tomorrow?
Starting tomorrow, midday. Thank you.
Just one more question for clarification on the weather standpoint. The mayor said remain vigilant along the river through the end of the weekend, but can you, for folks who see a lack of rain maybe in some of the San Marco areas, we hit high tide and it's not breaching those seawalls yet, where should we be looking to know, that's headed our way in the next couple of days? Is like Palatka what we should be looking at?
So a lot of that tide water is going to come through, but it's going to come through at a steady pace. It's not going to all surge down at once. But for the next couple of days, through it's Saturday morning, that's when we're going to experience the highest tidal flooding. And that's where it's going to be more the higher end moderate flooding that we would see with like a strong nor'easter.
So if I'm on the river, what do I need to be looking at as litmus test? Like a water level, a tide level?
We have tide gauges that are available, And knowing the tide times is going to be important. It's going to be a slow rise and then a slow recession. It's going to be high tide flooding.
And when will they be in the clear?
In the river, it should be at least out of the moderate stage by Sunday.
On garbage pickup, even though it's canceled today and tomorrow, do we know anything when it will resume and make-up days? And now, since so many trees are, you've seen all the debris around from trees, anything special on that?
Don't have when we'll resume normal pickup yet. We'll do that as soon as we can. That'll probably be able to announce that the next day or two. And again, once we understand the debris issue, we'll determine what we need to deploy. But I can assure you, we'll meet the need. Whatever we need to deploy, we'll put those assets out and get it picked up.
City offices are going to remain closed or tomorrow as well?
Yes.
Any more questions?
Thank you.